I'm Robert Timmons, and you're watching Weekly Words.
Stop me, oh, somebody stop me, stop me, stop me, please, somebody stop me, oh, somebody stop me, and Lord, if I'm doing it.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Thank you for checking out this week's episode of Weekly Words. I've heard this last week for you has been truly phenomenal. I want to remind everybody that my book, Behind the Smile, is still available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thank you so much for everybody who's been supporting me, and for everybody who's going to be supporting me in the future, thank you again so much. The link is below in the bio. But let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode of Weekly Words. All right, so this week I'm going to talk about the whole idea of a remote control, right? The idea of being able to control something by remote, right? And so it's funny because pretty much all my life growing up, we had a remote to the television and a remote to, multiple things in the house. So a remote is just natural to me. But I remember whenever I first watched Sherlock Holmes, the one with Robert Downey Jr., and at the end, they were talking about someone creating a remote and the ability to control something remotely. And I just thought it was interesting how that was something that I was used to, but in the scope of that film, it was new technology for them. And I just thought that it was very interesting. Anyway, so with all that being said, the other day I was thinking about, this remote controls the TV, and this remote controls the Bluetooth, and this remote controls that, and this remote, all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, what if we can be controlled by remotes? Like who would hold my remote control and who would be able to control me and stuff? And I was thinking, there are things that can quote unquote control us, right? And so the question isn't necessarily what if, but more so who or what is holding our remote control and who or what is controlling our actions. So I believe that for a lot of people, we allow our emotions and our circumstance to hold the remote of our control, right? And we fall subject and we fall victim to giving into our emotions and to our circumstance, and we allow that to dictate how we're going to treat somebody or what attitude we're going to have at work. Or if our manager treats us this way, then I'm going to perform this way. If our waiter does this, then I'm going to tip them this. Or if they look like this, then I know they're only going to be able to tip X, so I'm only going to service them like this, right? We allow our attitude, our emotions, the circumstance, the prejudice, whatever, to dictate how we are going to go about treating somebody, right? Or we're going to allow that thing to affect how we carry ourselves, right? Maybe we're not going to profess our belief in God because of who's around and we don't want to be judged, right? We mute down that part of our identity and that part of our character, right? We give the control of who we are to the circumstance or to the emotion, right? And I completely understand that in some cases, we have to act more professional, or we're going to be relaxed, or whatever. But I'm talking about more in changing our identity versus adapting to a new environment. Now, in the first 9 verses of Ephesians chapter 6, it's talking about the idea of, children honoring their parents and slaves honoring their master, right? And doing all this not necessarily because of whether or not you agree or disagree with the master or with the parents, but doing it out of respect and knowing that in respecting them, you are now honoring and serving God because you're doing his work, not just working for the parent or for the master, but you're working for God. You're giving him glory through everything that you're doing. Right, and this is a concept that's continuously repeated throughout the Bible, and so I think the same thing kind of goes here. Instead of letting the circumstance of who we work for, or the circumstance of how we're treated, or the circumstance or how we feel, let us or dictate the way that we are going to treat somebody and how we're going to respond to them. We should have control of that and say, you know what? Regardless of how you treat me, regardless of how much you tip me, I'm still going to provide this service for you. Regardless of how you speak to me, I'm still going to do my job. Regardless of how I agree or disagree, I'm still going to show you respect, right? Instead of giving that control to the circumstance and to our emotions, we are going to be disciplined to be consistent throughout. And now I understand how difficult this is, how it's easier said than done, because I actually currently work in customer service, and sometimes I have clients that are extremely difficult to deal with, and it's very frustrating to talk to them. But I've learned that doesn't give me an excuse to service them any less, right? I'm still going to service them to the best of my ability, because at the end of the day, I have a job and I'm going to do it. And at the end of the day, in me doing my job and fulfilling it completely, I am not just servicing that client, but it's also a way for me to honor God, right? So I took the control of how I act outside of the circumstance and outside of my emotions, and I put it and I rooted it in who I want to be as a person, my identity in Christ, knowing that through all that I do, I actually want to put my best foot forward so that I am actually serving God, my Heavenly Father. So today I want to encourage, whoever's listening, I want to encourage you to be you, to embrace your identity, embrace what you believe, and not try to change it based on the circumstance or based on your attitude or based on your emotions, because all of those things change daily. Multiple times a day even, right? And if we keep doing that, we're going to be extremely wavering, and we're going to be going on a roller coaster and just all these crazy things. I believe that we need to actually be consistent and be mindful of who we give control of our actions to, and recognize that it's not always a person, that it can be a thing, right? And we allow that to affect us. So be who you are. Don't try to mute yourself, mute your beliefs or your ideology around other people, right? Don't try to change the channel of your identity based on who you're around. Be who you are completely in all circumstances, right? And don't give your control over your life to somebody or something else. Hold on to that control and root it, hopefully, in God. All right, so question time. Just like every other week, I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions. And again, I encourage you to think through them by yourself and also talk about them with an accountability partner to see in which ways you can grow. All right, so let's get started. Question 1. Who or what currently holds the remote controlling your life? Who or what currently holds the remote for controlling your life? Question 2. In what ways can you be consistent in how you treat people that's not based on the circumstance or your emotions? Which ways can you be consistent in how you treat people that is not dependent on the circumstance or your emotions?